Alright, hello and welcome to another Devstream breakdown. Today was somewhat disappointing because we didn't really get a whole lot of news that was particularly surprising or anything, and a large part of the stream was relegated to something that should have been on prime time, which is a melee match between Rebecca and Sheldon, which was kind of nothing and lasted way longer than I wanted it to, so that was super disappointing. But we did get some things. And the first thing that I want to talk about is something that they kind of skimmed over, but I think is important enough that it needs to be addressed more specifically, and that is having a universal vacuum. So for people that don't know, Carrier is the most used Sentinel by like such an enormous margin that it begs the question, well, why is that? And the reason for that is vacuum, because vacuum is a quality of life improvement that makes it so that you don't have to individually walk to and pick up every fucking thing that drops on the entire map, which as you might imagine is super fucking annoying and is kind of the worst. So the majority of players just equip Carrier and then they don't have to worry about that stupid bullshit anymore. So here's the thing about that, is that apparently there's a debate. This is not a debate. It is objectively would be better to have a universal vacuum. That's an objective improvement. But apparently this debate is going on. So I just want to talk about why a universal vacuum is just inherently better. It is a quality of life improvement that makes the game more fun, factually. It is not fun to individually have to pick up and look at every little... Was there a mod over there? I guess I gotta go all the way over there. Like, you have no inherent, like, pickup range around you. It's your feet whenever you don't use Carrier. So apparently there's some debate that you should have to walk over everything, like ammo and all this, like, credits and bullshit that's on the map. Like, you should have to go and pick all that up yourself, as opposed to having a nice quality of life improvement where the items absorb into you at a decent range, which is what vacuum does, and it is a huge quality of life improvement, and that's why people use it. Especially considering with Parkour 2.0, we now have the tools to stay in the air for extended periods of time, and you don't pick things up when you're in the air unless the items are in the air, and everything falls to the ground. So you can imagine how well that goes for people that like to parkour around and be able to get drops. Vacuum is the answer. So, just right off the top, that's not a debate. A universal vacuum is a thing that needs to happen because it is just it is a raw improvement, and I welcome anyone that wants to argue me that would not be inherently better, like, because you are wrong if you don't think that is just better. And like, if your argument is that it makes the game easier, no, it doesn't. It does not do anything to change the difficulty of the game because everyone is already using Carrier. If anything, it just gives you more options and is just an inherently better thing. So anyway, we'll dump that, and people want me to talk about this, so I will. And like, specific improvements to the game. I think the Void video went very well, that I did for improvements to the Void. But let's move on from that. The Kubro pack mentality. So this is an attempt, and this kind of goes with the Carrier thing, to make Kubros better, and that if you had multiple Kubros in a mission, like say the raid for example, you could like give them an item, and then they would all come together and do like a big like super ability. Like, they would all come together and howl and cause like mass hysteria, panic, and damage and stuff all over the map, which is really interesting and would be a cool thing for Kubros to have, I think. So that's just that will be a cool addition if it does actually go into the game. I think that would be fine. Like I said, right now nothing beats Carrier because he is a quality of life improvement which is better than anything any Sentinel or Kubro can possibly offer. So there's that. So maybe that will have specific uses, but doesn't really fix Kubros entirely. I think everything... The problem, I'm just going to state a little bit, the problem with the balance between Sentinels and Kubros and just all companions in general is that Carrier is better than all of them because he's a quality of life improvement. Like, the rest provide damage, or crowd control, or some utility by going into stealth. But quality of life improvements are inherently better in every single way, because it makes the game more fun to play. So that's all I'm going to say about that. No more about that unless people want to hear it. Okay, so the other thing we got shown was a new cape, which is this right here. This is Nef Anyos or LV's. Actually, I'm not sure which one of them wears it. I think it's LV's, but it's basically a cape that is entirely made out of credits. So that is an interesting addition for people that want that stuff. So in other news, charge attacks for a long time have been said to be making a comeback, and those were confirmed for update 18. So we're probably going to see the rise of the Galatine back to even more use than it is already getting. I still see Galatines around. So I think that will be a bump for those heavier weapons, including the Skindo Prime, which is already fucking amazing. And they said that it could get more complicated and do like multiple charge attack stages and things like that, which would be really interesting. Excited for the return of charge attacks to make more weapons viable, possibly daggers for once. So that's kind of all there is to talk about with charge attacks. But now this is much more important, is the mastery rank restrictions, and I'm going to pop up an image that they showed, which is the difference between what an MR2 has access to and what an MR12 has access to. And the Nyx here is not really important, but does also kind of show some progression issues. So for experienced players looking at this, you can tell immediately that the one on the left is better equipped, or the one on this side for those of you watching. The MR2 is way better equipped, like by such a huge margin, because the Boltor Prime is a meta, top tier, amazing weapon, and the Synoid Simulor, which I have used, it was like it's the first thing that I got. That weapon's fucking garbage. Like, the redeeming thing about that weapon is that it's not absolute shit. That's the good thing about that weapon, and that is a mastery rank 12 required weapon, which is absolutely absurd. That thing would be fine at mastery rank -3. That weapon is fucking garbage. So if anyone wants my opinion on that weapon, that weapon is easily the worst of the lot out of all of the new Syndicate primaries. Like, it just is. So don't trade for it unless you want the mastery. Fair warning. But yeah, the Boltor Prime is way down low. So what they want to do is change the mastery rank restrictions to be more progression based, so that you don't just be like, you don't just get into the game and then someone tells you, well, Boltor Prime is like the super meta weapon that's really good, and then you just go and throw plat at someone and they give you a Boltor Prime, and then that's the only thing you are incentivized to use because it is the best weapon you have for such an insane amount of time. Instead, they want to incentivize people to use the lower weapons until they get stronger, and then get stronger and use the better weapons and have actual progression, which is a great change. I know some people are going to be unhappy with this, so there's not much I can say other than that change is good because it incentivizes progression in a good way. So another thing is that if you already do currently have a Boltor Prime and you're like Master Rank 3, for example, it's probably going to get bumped up somewhere around 7 or 8, I would guess. But you will still keep that weapon. You already have it. So if you're thinking about doing that stuff and like getting a Boltor Prime and you're a low Master Rank, do it now. Build the damn thing so you can have it. You also will not be able to get traded blueprints that you cannot build. So it will sort of change the trading market in that way. But I think it would be kind of for the best, just in general. So I think that change is going to be really good for progression, and just that is a change that is maybe controversial to some people that don't want to like do the mastery rank thing, but overall I think it's a good change for more rewards for like ranking up your mastery rank, because right now there aren't a ton of them. So anyway, onwards, we have the sniper reworks. Now this it was compared to the shotgun rework, but they didn't really talk about anything. I think it's because Scott wasn't there, because he's the one working on it, of course. But they did say one thing, which is having user-controlled zoom. So like in a normal first-person shooter, or like a Sniper Elite, I suppose, you would have different levels of zoom that you can switch between and manually use. So for me, whenever I zoom in Warframe, I zoom in and I shoot a guy. I don't see, different levels of zoom takes time, and because of the speed of Warframe, I don't know who user-controlled zoom is helping. Unless it's constant, you can zoom it into the level that you're comfortable with, and then it stays there when you zoom in and out, then I don't really see what kind of improvement that is. Because snipers need more, penetration and damage, as opposed to any utility differences between other weapons to make them good. So that is the only thing they talked about. I hope there's more to that, because that alone is not going to do anything for snipers other than, make it, novel to use. And then next we have the focus system, which has been talked about for about a year and a half. The game has been out for a little over 2 years, so expectations are high and low. Low is the end of it never actually coming out, but allegedly it's coming out for update 18, and it will be tied to a quest. Brackets here are going to be kind of my thoughts in the notes here, and I just don't think it's gonna happen. It has been delayed so many times that at this point it is Half-Life 3. It is Warframe's Half-Life 3. It's never gonna happen. If it happens, that'd be cool. I'm sure that'd be great. But I have no faith in it actually coming out. It's probably gonna get gutted and get thrown into something else as usual. Anyway, they talked about mandatory mods. So if you've been playing for any amount of time, you kind of probably already know this, but mods like Hornet Strike and Lethal Torrent and Barrel Diffusion, those are mods that are multi-shot and damage, basically, is kind of required. You use it because duh. You use it literally because duh. What? There's no reason not to use it. Because it is just a raw increase. It's just better in every possible way. So, to fix you having to put these exact mods into your weapons, they decided to nerf multi-shot, which is not a fix at all. It's literally just a huge nerf to a bunch of weapons. So that's wonderful. You fix the problem? Absolutely not. This literally fixes nothing. So multi-shot is going to increase how much ammo you consume when you fire, which means that every single secondary across the board just got nerfed super hard. Because that means, because you use triple multi-shot on all secondaries, because duh, you are using 3 times as much ammo with every single weapon now to get the same amount of damage. Which for weapons like the Vapor Marlock, not a huge deal. Gotta reload a little more, but generally, you do enough damage where that ammo is totally justified and worth it. Now, for other weapons, let's say the Synoid Gamma Core, or the Twin Vipers, or anything that's rapid fire. Literally, the Axani, the Axe Stiletto, the Lex, even. The Lex has a tiny, tiny clip. All of that stuff has been nerfed into the ground. If a weapon is not inherently super ammo efficient and reloads at a good rate, that weapon just got nerfed into the dirt by this change. It puts an even larger gap between the Vapor Marlock and so many other secondaries. Before this change, and this change has not gone in yet, I'm talking about what will happen if this change actually does happen and there are not severe, ammo count changes. The difference between a Vapor Marlock and the Axani was sort of preference. The Vapor Marlock has some definite inherent bonuses, but the Axani definitely have their place. You could use these. They are rapid fire, good for taking out a lot of people in a group very quickly. Vapor Marlock more of a single shot, taking out hard targets, but can fire fast enough to take out a couple of dudes in quick succession. those are different use cases. If you do the multi-shot ammo consumption, suddenly the Akzani run out of ammo when they're clipped 3 times faster, which means that those weapons are fucking useless. Completely useless. Like, they lose their purpose. Because that makes the gap of you use so much more ammo that those weapons are already not worth it because they're too ammo hungry at that point. And then at the same time, the Vapor Merlock still uses like pretty much the same amount of ammo to do, or well, then the Akzani uses significantly less ammo. So it gets less shots per clip, but that's still fine because you're only taking out specific hard targets with your huge damage. So it's fine. You never really need that many shots to take out anything. But like, it changes the balance of secondaries in a terrible, terrible way. And it's also a nerf to like all machine gun primaries, because when you get that multi-shot, it only goes to 90%. That multi-shot doesn't go to 100 for fucking no reason. So now you have like an inconsistent clip, and you don't get, like, it's not a bonus. It's not a mod you're putting in for a bonus. It's a mod you're shooting in that is essentially just fire rate, which isn't good. Like, it changes multi-shot to fire rate instead of a good bonus that you get. So it's like, why? Why would you do it? And, like, that is a fucking terrible change. And it doesn't fix any of the problem of, like, oh, you put Hornet Strike in, then you put multi-shot in, then you put multi-shot in. You still do that, because those mods are objectively better than almost every other mod. It's just now you've nerfed multi-shot into making it shit balance for secondaries. So, good job. More nerfs on things that were completely fine and were pretty roughly balanced together. So, nerfing is great. Okay, so star chart changes, which they should have talked significantly more about, but didn't because it kind of just got sandbagged super hard. The only thing they said is that Barocketeer is just going to be a guy in the star chart, which is fine. Barocketeer is annoying as hell to find because you have to like load into a relay and then look at where he actually is, unless you got lucky, and then load out and then load into the real relay, and like it's a huge back and forth pain in the ass to get there. So that's a quality of life improvement. Speaking of quality of life improvements, we have the VoIP improvements. If anyone has used the voice in Warframe on PC, or I suspect in the console versions as well, you'll have noticed that its audio quality is absolute shit, which is why I always have it completely turned off. So it turns out that the code for voice communication is about 8 years old, whenever networking was even worse than it is now. So they're updating that to make it pleasant to listen to for people that are not on like terrible headsets that just hear that audio quality all the time. Like for example, these are fairly nice unless you give me good audio quality. The disparity between that voice and literally everything else I hear is huge, which is why I turned it off. So that's kind of a huge deal specifically for rating, because the higher like quality that it is will make it so people actually want to use it. Like whenever that update comes out, I'm turning it back on because I want to see how good it is, and it's good for rating and it's good for communication in general. But that's kind of all that we got this Devstream. It's unfortunate. A lot of it was taken up by things that should have been on prime time, as I said before. But we got some decent stuff. Honestly, the two of the things they talked about are not super huge debates in terms of is this a good change or not. Universal vacuum and the multi-shot thing. I think the answers to if that's good or not is pretty obvious to people that have any reasonable amount of playtime. And there are changes that would have been a lot better that they could have made to things to make things more viable as opposed to less. But that's Devstream 59. A real mixed bag of a Devstream.